Detroit. Thank you for tuning in to Beauty in the D, hosted by yours truly, where we discuss power, wealth, and style. We want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Giovanni McCall, also known as G, the short hair slayer. That's who keeps my hair slayed. I feel like I have two hairstyles today. One side is short, one side is long. Thank you, G. We also want to thank our other sponsor, Mina Martinez, who does all of my social media marketing. And last but not least, we want to thank the London Consulting Firm Corporation, who powers and sponsors this show. Today, our special guest, I am super excited. I'm so thankful that she's here. I'm going to do her bio real quickly. It's so much that she had to try to squeeze
Abbreviate
it.
it. Abbreviate
She
it.
had to abbreviate it. So we have Sherry Gay Nadego is an at-large member of Detroit Public Schools Board of Education. She assumed office on January 1st, 2021, after ending her third and final term as state representative of Michigan's 8th House District due to term limits. As a state representative, Gay Nadego was the first woman to serve as chair of the Michigan Legislative Detroit Caucus from 2017 until 2020, and the first urban education advisory chair. She also served as executive vice chair of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus and as vice chair of financial services. Additionally, she served on House Insurance and Families, Children and Seniors Committees. Miss Sherry Gago is an educational leader who earned her Bachelor of Science in Education and a Master of Education in Instructional Technology from Wayne State University in Detroit. She drew from her experience as a Detroit Public Schools science teacher to lead the 2010 through 2012 Kindergarten Readiness Initiatives program in partnership with the Great Start Collaborative, UCLA, United Way of Southeast Michigan, and the Kresge Kellogg and Skillman Foundations. Community members and lawmakers alike have honored Gay Nadego with numerous awards, including the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus, Annette Rainwater Grassroots Organizing Award, the John Conyers Trailblazer Award, the Michigan Chronicle Women of Excellence Award, the Legal Aid and Defenders Association Award, and was recently nominated for the Wade McCree Justice Award, for example. And guys, this is just, trust me, this is the abbreviated version. She's a lifelong resident of the city of Detroit. She's a former vice president of North Rosedale Park Civic Association, where she remains active. She is a mom of one son, Jordan, a Detroit Public Schools and Cass Tech graduate, and a proud mom of Bella, a rescued Beagle Pointer. Thank you and welcome to the show, Sherry.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here today. The weather is beautiful.
It's so beautiful, it's almost scary.
Yeah,
But I'll
yeah,
take
yeah.
it.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Thank you again for coming. I know, you mentioned that you had just come from a funeral. And so sorry. But also, even though you're just coming from a funeral, you look so fabulous. You look so
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate
just
that.
thank you. I mean, so put together.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I just want to recognize and honor the passing of Attorney Todd Perkins and Judge Sean Perkins' mother, Miss Shirley Perkins. So his service was today. I left there and then stopped by a new exhibit that's opening at the Science Center. I am a former science teacher.
Right.
And so got a chance to stop by and preview an exhibit
Okay.
that they will have opening up on my birthday next Tuesday, January 30th.
Happy birthday.
Thank you in advance, in advance. And so we're excited about this great weather because we're going to party like it's 1999 on Monday,
I know.
January 29th at 1440 Franklin.
Okay, 1440 Franklin. You
Yes.
heard it. bring gifts.
And actually, shameless plug, it's to support my Strong Women Lead PAC.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
and you've been a supporter of that. And so people say, well, what is that? A PAC is a political action committee. A number of candidates have them, or a number of organizations have them. And it's for the purpose of raising funds to do get out the vote efforts, voter education efforts. And so as you've seen over the last 2 years, I've been very involved with a redistricting lawsuit since March 2022. We recently won that lawsuit, and so it is
Good.
important, as you know, you've assisted me in some efforts, that black leadership, having black leadership is important,
Mm-hmm.
and due to redistricting, something that happens every 10 years,
Mm-hmm. Which
we
recently happened.
which
Let our
recently happened.
listeners know
Yes.
about that and how that impacted, our one of our most recent elections.
Absolutely. And so since 2020, every 10 years you do
Mm-hmm.
the census. And so people, for some reason, often don't always fill out the census. They're afraid to fill out the census, but that the census is what helps to um, maintain what our population numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps to bring funding to our city, our state, and if we're not filling out the census, we're actually allowing federal funding to not be allocated to our
So we're
community.
hurting ourselves
Oh, absolutely.
by not
By
completing
not
that.
completing the census.
And my business is down in Southwest Detroit, and during the
Yes.
time of the census, they were encouraging people, because you're right, there were a lot of people in that particular community who were afraid to fill out
Yeah,
those.
and I get it with Southwest Detroit. There's been so
Yes.
much that happened, especially under the Trump presidency, and people afraid, immigration issues, not wanting to, be transported out of our country. So I get the fear and trepidation that exists.
But they
from
shouldn't
that.
fear.
But
Is
they
what you're
should not.
saying.
Right? They should not fear.
Okay.
This is for the purpose of bringing resources to our community. So getting that census, there's so much data that is calculated from our census
In terms of money.
every money, data, information about our schools, about our population, about a myriad of issues, but certainly as it relates to redistricting, redrawing the lines, for to make sure that representation is fair and equitable. If you're not completing the census, then the numbers are not accurate. And there
Right.
was some talk about the numbers not being accurate for the city of Detroit. But in doing so, those lines are drawn, and the elections take place as a result of that. And the districts, the new lines are drawn, and you saw from 2022, a number of individuals were elected, and then a number were unseated, due to these lines being redrawn that disproportionately impacts African Americans. And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Senate District 8, formerly represented by Senator Marshall Bullock.
Okay.
That district was redrawn, and now it only encompasses about 20, just shy of 30%, I'll say, of Detroit, but the rest of the district sprawls out into Oakland County as well as Macomb. And so
Okay.
it makes it challenging for a Detroit candidate to win, and
In Macomb and Oakland.
right. And for people who don't understand how that impact other areas in our lives, if we have representation that is representing Brightmoor, that actually lives in Oakland County. I used to represent Brightmoor, one of the the most challenging communities, that is making its way back. But just think about if an elected official from Oakland County had to answer to their constituents. Who do you think they're going to listen to? Are they going to listen to people in Birmingham who are more affluent, or are they going to listen to people who are in Brightmoor?
You already know the
And
answer
so
to that.
and so when you think about issues as it relates to auto insurance and the cost of
Yes.
auto insurance, and you think about affordable housing, and you think about how money is appropriated to institutions like our schools, these are all the areas where someone not living in the city, nor do they understand the issues of the city, may take votes that once again continue to create this systematic racism, institutional
Right.
racism.
Absolutely.
And it's not that they are bad people. I want to make that clear. It's just they are not people who understand the issues from our community and how those issues impact people who are desperately impacted.
Absolutely. They don't understand the socioeconomics
Absolutely.
of the community, because
Absolutely.
our socioeconomics in Brightmoor, since we're using it as an example, is totally different than what's across the 8 Mile. We're just being
Absolutely.
honest. I
Yes.
mean, you can ride through I just rolled through there the other day. I was over going to the Myers. I
Mhm.
mean, it's, yes,
It's challenging.
it is,
Mhm.
to say the least. So I'm glad that you shared that so that we know with the census that that is directly tied into how they determine how they're going to redistrict our communities.
100%.
So we need to so the census comes out
Every
every
10 years.
every 10
Every 10
years.
years. And so you'll see that we drew um, House, Senate, and congressional seats.
Mhm.
Wayne County drew lines for Wayne County commissioners.
Mhm.
So those are new districts. And the city of Detroit is currently doing their due diligence to redraw city council lines based on population shift.
Okay.
And so I know sometimes people, they're busy in their daily lives, working, taking care of their
Mhm.
kids, taking
Mhm.
care of their families. They may not always be completely informed on all the levels of government and what each entity is
And they
doing.
just probably simply don't know,
They just
Sherry.
don't know. They just don't know. And
Yeah.
you hear the word redistricting, you're like, oh, the Wayne County did theirs. The redistricting Michigan commission did the state, the Senate, and Congress. And we started lawsuits immediately after that
Wow.
because we lost 20% of black representation. And as you know, we don't have one majority African American congressional seat. And
Mhm.
based on the census numbers, we should have at least one.
Wow. We don't even have one.
We don't have one.
Wow. One thing I love about you, Sherry, is you're always so passionate about when you speak and what you believe in. How did you go from obviously being passionate about being a teacher into politics in the first place?
Because it's all interconnected, and that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. It's all interconnected. Number one, I'm an Aquarius. Okay, okay, we just wired differently anyway. And I just found out recently that there really are three kind of categories or deacons, as they call them, of Aquarians. And I'm not one of those people that's all into deep into horoscopes, but I do believe that the way that the stars and the planets are aligned when we're born, it does have impact on who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I am every bit of, in a lot of ways, similar to, a humanitarian. I mean, that's
Okay.
very highly opinionated, very passionate,
Very passionate.
somewhat
Energetic.
energetic, but a social loner. Most people think when you think you're a
What's a
loner,
social loner?
a social loner is someone who is very social when they're very social,
Uh-huh.
but love being alone. I love being at home by myself, me and my dog.
Okay.
I love being by myself. A
I'm
lot
gonna
of people,
steal that.
yeah,
I've never heard
I'm
that.
a social loner, and people say, "Oh,
Okay.
you're not a loner," but I really am.
Mm-hmm.
I love being. I could be the life of the party, or I could be very reclusive and to myself when I'm by myself.
Well, that's probably because you need to recharge
Probably.
from all of that energy that you're dispersing when you out here. You everywhere,
yeah,
Sherry.
yeah.
You
So-
have a lot of energy.
But so being the daughter of a father who was incarcerated, I was born on Burlingame and Dexter during the uprising, 1967.
Because that used to be a pretty beautiful area
Yes,
of the city.
yes. And my mother met my father, or they met each other, working in the automotive industry, actually for a motor company. My father worked there for a while, and then he worked for GM. But ultimately, my father was a gangster.
Okay.
And so ultimately ended up going to prison. And so I was home with my mom. And I've always been a very curious and adult-minded kid. Like, so I spent a lot of time. I was the last child at home, the youngest of 3 siblings. And raised in church. I always just wanted to know why things were the way they were. Mm-hmm. How do we fix this? Why? Everything was why. A friend of mine, he always asked me, he said, what's with you and this why? You always asking why. I was like, that's how I'm engineered. It's like always why.
So
There's
your
a
why.
reason. I need my why.
Mm-hmm.
I need my why. So,
and then Christian background and gangster.
Right. Yep. So, and I used to be ashamed of the gangster part, but I'm not no more because you got to be almost gangster out in here in these streets with politics, dealing with some of these folks that do some of the most shadiest things.
I'm sure they'd be trying to bully you.
Baby.
I'm sure.
Yes. If not in front of my face, certainly behind my back.
Okay.
But I'm on to them. And that's another thing about Aquarius. We see, even if we act like we don't see, we see and we know. But so being raised as single home, going to school. I was pretty much kind of K through 12, somewhat of an average student, but always educators were like, oh, she's performing below, her potential. And it was, but I was in a singing group at 5. So I used to say to my mother at these singing groups and always, grown folks' business. But nonetheless, as I grew and matriculated, I did end up going to college at SUNY College in Hancock, Michigan, in the UP. I only went because back then it was a recruiter. My best friend was going. She was from a more affluent community back then.
Okay.
And she was going, and so he signed me up. I said, okay, I'll go. I didn't particularly care for it. I mean, when it snowed, they had little orange balls on the antennas on their car. And I ended up moving to New York. I asked my mother.
Really?
I asked my mother if I find a job when I went to bed. I used to always visit my cousins since I was a child. But I asked my mother if I found a job. I don't know why I came with this question. If I find a job tomorrow, can I stay? Well, I guess she assumed I wasn't going to find a job tomorrow. Well, I did. I found a job down in Manhattan with a publishing company, a gift and decorators accessories publishing company. And I did, and I lived there for like 5.5 years.
And so how old were you?
I was like maybe 18, 19, yeah, because that was like my first year of college. Was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like being in the UP.
Girl, that's a big jump from the UP,
From the UP.
Okay, to Manhattan.
To the boogie down Bronx.
Okay.
I lived in the Bronx, but I worked in Manhattan. But I loved it. When I say it was one of the best decisions I could have made in my life.
Yes, I'm sure you learned a lot.
I learned a lot. I grew up a lot, and I just had an absolute ball. And then I came home, and my mother used to be like, you had so many goals. You had so many things you wanted to do. I just wish you would come home. And eventually I did. I came home. And I got my first job working for Alberta Tinsley Talabi.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that was working for Detroit City Council. Actually, it was Cellular One first.
Okay.
But then, I'm dating myself with Cellular One, right? But then after there, I worked for Alberta, and I was doing constituent services. And I started out as kind of like a receptionist, and then I grew into doing her fundraising. I grew into doing training for technology. It was a myriad of
But
jobs.
how did it even get to that? Like, most people have to know somebody have a hookup. I mean,
Well, my mother went to church. Still does. But back then, the late Bishop David Ellis, he bought tickets to Alberta's prayer breakfast, and my mother's a talker. My mother introduced herself to Alberta and, asked did she have any jobs or whatever. And then Alberta told her yes to send my information. I sent my information. Bam, I got the job.
That's what we do for our kids.
Right. See? So got the job. I was a receptionist. And from the receptionist, I was doing all kind of stuff.
Okay.
Fundraising, designing flyers, training. Then I left her office and I went to work for the late Clyde Cleveland.
Okay.
But in working there, I would hear from so many constituents and all the issues they were having. I was like, oh my God, this is somewhat depressing.
Because this was before emails and all of that.
Yes, this is like, no, we did have email. Have email. But they would call the office like for lights, for trees, for streets, for roofs, for this, and I'm like, well, why is our community so depressed? Why is so much going on? Then I said, you know what? I will know how I'll change the world. I will, because originally I was going to be pre-med when I went to SUNY.
Really?
In the UP. And then from pre-med, I still liked science, and I liked math.
Okay.
And because I was going to church and the choir director was a math teacher, I was like, I'll be a math teacher. And so I started going to school, but then I started taking much more science without even really realizing it. I just absolutely love science. Hence, I just came from the Michigan Science Center. But I love science because it relates to life in so many ways. Physical science, biology, you name it, chemistry. I loved it. And while I was going to school to be a math teacher, once I sat down at Wayne State and talked to folks, they were like, well, why are you going to school for a math teacher? You've taken like almost double the classes necessary for science. If you do a science degree, you get out almost a year early. I was like, well, sign me up.
Okay.
Yeah, but so I figured when I left City Council that I would go and change the world by helping to educate our kids, because if you got all these adults who are having all these social ills and problems, I'm like, how do I fix that? I fix that by going to fix education.
Especially being a woman, a black woman, teaching those two subjects right there, math and science.
And they're absolutely related. They absolutely
are, because my daughter struggles with math really bad.
Yeah.
And it's not just her.
Yeah. Oh no, it's not. And so I was trying. I was going to be a math teacher, but I'll be honest with you, calculus was one of the classes that gave me the toughest time. It was like a math problem was about 3 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
I would always get the concept well after the test was over, and I had a fine baby. When I say fine calculus professor, but that's a whole nother sidebar.
You say I got the lesson
Baby,
after the test.
I got it after the test. But I'm glad that I did science because I mean I obviously I love it. I mean I was taking so many different classes that relate to it. But there are studies that speak to why our girls have challenges with math.
Really?
And oftentimes it's the messages that are sent to us very early on by society, by sometimes teachers.
Mm-hmm.
That basically, in an essence, almost make you feel like you are not capable of being mathematic or logical.
I'm going to have to agree.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have to be mindful and push back on that
Mm-hmm.
and expose her to people like Mae Jemison,
Okay.
the astronaut, and many other that scientists that are women,
Yeah.
to make sure that she understands that women, and especially black women, have a
Mhm.
history and track record of being excellent mathematicians.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
advice
so,
because when you see a student and they're excelling in their other subjects, but continuously, just my daughter's just I won't say she's failing, but she's continuously
struggle.
not.
Yeah,
Is she
yeah,
struggling?
yeah.
And I mean, to her core, I see her break down. I see her
Yeah,
trying.
and that becomes internalized. So
Yes.
definitely check that. I know at Wayne State they have a math core program. There are a few different programs that deal with math.
Mhm.
But number one, part of the issue of not internalizing the inability is what's more important than the exposure to ways that she may think differently, she may learn differently, she
Mhm.
may need an additional tutor. But
Mhm.
there are messages, and look it up. There's studies, and so we talked about what made me so passionate is that struggle.
Mhm.
That struggle of learning that once I got in the classroom, oh my God, we have a whole another set of issues here. Number one, the state has historically dismantled education and almost intentionally dismantled education, public education,
In our communities.
in our community, in our state, and across this country. And it all goes together. And let me
Wow.
tell you why. Prisons are built based on third grade reading scores. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so if you can destroy the schools, if you can destroy the education foundation,
Mhm.
you have an automatic pipeline to prison is what they call it.
Wow.
And so when I understand that, oh my God, you're subjecting a whole generation, several generations of children
Mhm.
to subpar, substandard schools.
On purpose.
You're setting the equation for failure. You're building prisons based on third grade reading scores. And now you expect us to be able to perform at scale when you've put every barrier possibly in place,
Mhm.
from the facilities not looking the same and
Mhm.
having the same aesthetics, materials, resources, and so on. I could go on and on.
Mhm.
And so that is the part as being a mother. My son's 30, he'll be 31 in May, angered me to a place where now I got to fight for coming out of the city knowing that we have all these challenges, social challenges,
Mhm.
economic challenges that now you're going to subject a whole generation
Mhm.
of children to because you have not ensured that they have the best education. Now I got to go in the classroom and try to teach this, but I got to go now from the classroom to the legislature because I got to try to attack the laws that subjected our children to this to begin with.
Mhm.
And so it becomes, not just a theory of change, but an action plan for change of going to the legislature. I didn't just want to be elected to the legislature.
Right.
I wanted to
Everything
fix
built.
it. Yes. And in order to fix it, it was going to address things like when you hear third grade reading laws, when you heard things like A through F ranking, ranking children and a myriad of different things, how you fund our schools. I mean, you're a realtor.
Well,
A
insurance.
realtist,
Mhm.
insurance.
Mhm.
But I know it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
But I mean, the rates, the systemic racial barrier between Detroit and the 8 Mile
Oh
line,
yeah.
and how historically those who live in certain zip codes pay more. So
Mhm.
getting into the legislature, it wasn't just me fighting for education; it became me fighting for equity at all levels,
At all
whether
levels.
it's auto insurance, whether it's education, whether it's criminal justice reform. So all those things, people say, "Well, how did you get there?"
Yeah.
They're all interconnected to a degree, because if you don't have a sound foundation for education, guess what? Ultimately, the odds are you're going to come in contact with the criminal justice system.
So what does the work week look like
Oh, Lord.
for a state rep when you have all of these issues, and I'm sure you have to prioritize like which issue am I going to fight and tackle today?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what does that look like?
Every day looks different. I mean, I served 6 years in the
Mhm.
legislature, and then COVID came, 2020.
Mhm.
Lost my colleague, lost friends, lost my sister, April of 2020,
Mhm.
lost my stepfather, and then a number of teachers, were afraid of COVID, and they asked me to run for the school board. Usually, people do it the opposite way. They run for the school board, which is a non-paid job.
Mhm.
Paid job. We do get stipends for meetings that we attend, but nonetheless, it varies every day, because, and it varies between districts. And so, going back full circle to redistricting, my seniors, who are now represented by a rep from Oakland County,
Mhm.
the senior needs in Detroit, they don't care if you passed a bill. They don't care what legislation, in a lot of instances, some of them, but for
Mhm.
the most part, that's not their major focus.
Mhm.
They love to see that you are advocating and fighting for fairness and equity,
Mhm.
but many of them have issues with their utilities. They have issues with their health care. They have issues with mobility. They have issues in their buildings, that if their buildings are not properly clean. So you're always running interference with and connecting them with the
The
social
resources.
institutions and
Mhm.
resources that they need, whether it's somebody to help repair their roof, whether it's somebody to help uh, fix the lighting on their street. And so you're running interference and or conducting traffic, and making sure that, oh, this is a city issue. Let me make sure that I get you to the persons
Mhm.
that can address this at the city level. Oh, this is a state issue. Let me make sure. Oh, this is a federal issue. Let me get you to your congressperson. So you're always interfacing with, and constituent services is a huge part of your job, as a legislator. And I would venture to say for most elected officials, but I came through 9.5 years in working for a city council, and ultimately became a person who was working on constituent services.
That's a lot of multitasking
It
because you're
is.
putting out fires, you're
All the time.
solving
Yep.
issues,
Yep.
but you're still fighting for
Absolutely,
causes.
absolutely, and
You know what I
and
mean?
you have to do both. You have to do all. You have to do all, and so you have a small budget for staff when you in the legislature. The problem is now I still get the calls, but I don't have the staff.
Right, right, right.
I mean, I don't. I'm going to two constituents. One former constituent and one that's further on the east side, a 90-year-old party tonight, that lived in or lives in a building that I represented,
Okay.
over on Finkel, off of Finkel.
Hmm.
I don't know if she invited her current state rep, but in her mind, I am her forever
State rep.
state rep because of how much time I spent in my senior buildings.
Yeah.
So her party's tonight. She's turning 90. I know Judge Kenny King will also be there, presenting her with some recognition, but I'll be there tonight. So that's you. You serve in Lansing. You vote on legislation.
But you do
You
real
lift up.
community involvement.
That's the key.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground.
And that's how,
And that's the purpose of Strong Women
yeah.
Lead, because I would be outright broke if I had to do it all just based on what income I have personally. And so
Hmm.
for those who ask, well, what is $100 ticket for a birthday celebration? It's to help me continue doing the advocacy,
Hmm.
that I do for whether it's human trafficking. And we
Hmm.
pass resolutions for that and address issues concerning that, and helping out with alternatives for girls and other women and girl organizations, whether it's for our seniors,
Wow.
whatever it's for. There's so much work to still do that everybody could grab a bucket and help, put out a fire. But
Hmm.
oftentimes people just see me in the public and they're like, "Oh, you're doing such a great job. Keep up the good work." I'm like, "Okay, pray for me and please help."
Right. So
Because everybody can help.
everybody can, and you know what? That was going to be one of my questions to you. I was going to say, what about somebody who does not desire to have an elected position, but really want to get involved in their community?
Volunteerism. I mean, that is, that's what is the quote? I don't want to mess it up, but volunteerism is the rent you pay for the space you. I'm tearing the quote up. I need to pull it up. But I mean, volunteering and giving yourself to something.
Hmm.
I mean, at this big age, anybody, first of all, we should raise our children to have a mindset to give of themselves to some organization. But anytime you are 30, 40, 50, 60, you should have some organization that you either donate to or give your time to,
Hmm.
because otherwise, from my perspective, you're just taking up space and just trying to gain and advance in the world without thinking about how do I help my fellow man or help fellow
Hmm.
woman. And so volunteerism, and then it's, if it's not an organization, find an elected official that aligns with your priorities.
Hmm. That you can
Right.
volunteer for.
I couldn't do half the things I do if it wasn't for great team members. When
Hmm.
we do Meals on Wheels
Hmm.
with Detroit Area Agency on Aging, I mean, I have a host of people that will volunteer their time and come and help out.
Hmm.
But that's how we do it. Organize people that are willing to help. And there are a myriad of organizations that are
Hmm.
out there. You find your passion, what you like, and whether it's youth oriented, whether it's education, whether it's
Hmm.
healthcare, whatever it is, there's so many places and spaces that people can sign up
Hmm. And just get
to be a
in.
volunteer
Hmm.
to help, because I think it's incumbent upon all of us. Your name don't have to be on a ballot
Right.
to help and make sure that you put people in place
Put people in place
that
and make a difference.
that can make a difference and that will help advocate for you. I'll say this. We did an effort with our high school students last election cycle that were coming of age to vote.
Hmm.
And many of the young men that was coming in there, they were, and ladies too, young girls too, they would come in and you could tell they was laying all down on the table and it was like, well, why we got to vote anyway? And I'm like, well, how many of you have ever had a family member that has been incarcerated? Then the hands went up. I'm like, well, how many of you would love to see them get a fair shot when they go to court? Then hands went up. Then people start sitting up. I said, when you look at this long list of judges and you have no idea who they are,
Hmm.
it is your responsibility to help stack the court in favor of your family to be able to get a fair shot.
Hmm.
I said, and that's why elections are important. They have consequences. I saw a number of the judges today at Attorney Todd Perkins' mother's service. Like, these are people who are out in the community. You don't want judges that you never see anywhere.
Right.
I
That's
saw
out of touch.
Judge Cynthia Latoy Miller. She is always out. I've known her for almost 20 plus years, but she's always out. She's always had a passion for our youth. She worked in the space of juvenile detention right now. And so, I mean, like, that's a great role for her as a judge to be in. I saw Judge Weeks. I saw Judge, oh my God, I saw so many judges today. Geraldine Bledsoe. I saw a number of judges today that are out in the community. Judge Live in My Community, Judge David Perkins. These are people that you see that are working in the community. They don't have to.
Hmm.
I saw Judge, is it Kiana? I forgot. I'm tearing up people's names today. Lord forgive me. But it's so many of them that you see out in the community. But then there's a whole bunch of judges that once they get elected,
Hmm.
you don't see from them, hear from them again for a very long time. And the way I kind of make my decisions is you don't have to be everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you should be accessible to the people at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so those judges that are in the community, like I'm going to see Judge Kenny King tonight,
Mm-hmm.
because Mother Yates loved her some Judge Kenny King. I encourage people to make sure they get to know them and vote
Mm-hmm.
for those judges, because they care enough to be
Mm-hmm.
out in the community beyond the time
Beyond.
for election.
Yep.
So, but
Volunteer, which
yeah,
means they are
yeah,
not getting
yeah,
paid.
yeah. So inequity at any level is what fueled my fire and my passion
Mm-hmm.
for all of these connected areas, because it securing a strong foundation for education ensures a strong academic standing. It ensures reduced rates of incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
It ensures safe communities. So if
And
we can't get
productive
that right, and
citizens.
productive citizens, if we can't get that right, then that sprawls into all of these
Other
social issues.
Yeah.
And so that's why all of those areas I'm very passionate about. And then black ownership.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm
Absolutely.
very adamant about speaking up
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to making sure that black empowerment, self-determination, black contracting
Mm-hmm.
is something that I'm very I'm not shy about talking about that. And I
No,
know it
you
makes
are
people
not.
uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but you got to make sure that we're supporting our own, because
Absolutely.
other communities will ride past your business and go and find their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I live that. So, and I thank you for being, um, vocal about that, with
Yes.
our black businesses. Detroit has it going on right now, honestly, with small business owners, entrepreneurs alike. We're really putting ourselves on the map
Yeah,
in
I'm
that
proud of
way.
that. That
I
that's
am
one of the
too.
biggest job building. People think it's just the corporations, but jobs at the community level are built by small businesses.
Yeah.
And so making sure that they're able to sustain themselves, making sure that they have, affordable leasing and or capital,
Mm-hmm.
access to capital. I used to serve as the vice chair of financial services, so I sat on banking. Having a fair shot at getting the resources and the loans that are
Absolutely.
necessary. It's a myriad of grants, Motor City Match, and the
Mm-hmm.
like have done great work. I know Charity Dean and their Black Business Alliance, they've done some amazing work. So it's
Mm-hmm.
great to see that.
It
And
is.
our small businesses need to pay attention, because there are opportunities that are coming with the draft
Mm-hmm.
being here in the city of Detroit. Oftentimes we don't get the information
Let's talk
until
about that.
it's way past
Mm-hmm.
the deadline, and we're always left. Nobody's given us a manuscript of how to get access. I think it's something that our city council members should probably hold a forum on, to tell business owners, how they could get access to those applications,
Mm-hmm.
to apply, to be considered, to get the vendor license that are necessary,
Yes.
because it's gonna be a whole lot of money
Mm-hmm.
flowing through the city of Detroit.
Yes, it is. I'm glad you said that. Yes, small business owners, and include myself. I hope you're listening. Vendor opportunities, which will equate to needing special event insurance as
Yes,
well.
yes,
So
yes.
let's talk about that. So we talked a lot about the causes that you fight for in all of many of the organizations that you belong to. But let's talk about you, Sherry, the personal side of Sherry. What is your work life balance like? Like when you're not out here fighting for our communities and our
Yeah.
children,
Mhm.
what are you doing for you?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm a serial project developer, organizer, etc. It really does make me tick.
Okay.
Working on efforts that I see that I believe will improve the quality of life for people in my community.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it. So it's part of my work is, I won't say recreational, but I'll say somewhat therapeutic. But it's
It don't even feel like work.
right, right, and it doesn't always feel like work. Sometimes it's stressful, depending on the issue that I am fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But I have my Bella, my
Okay.
beagle pointer, and so being a fur mom, I think that helps to level me out. I'm home if I'm not out pretty much either going to an event that is somehow related to the work, and in some instances, people come to your events, they expect you to come to theirs. I get so many invitations, and so I'm stretched very thin oftentimes, and I try to make a lot of events. Like today, I think this is number 3, and I have 2 more this evening, so that'll be 5 for the day.
Where you get all your energy from? What kind of water are you drinking? What type of vitamins you taking?
So yeah, I take a lot of vitamins. Everything. We started ordering up some stuff after COVID or during COVID.
Okay.
So I mean, whether it's vitamin B, whether it's Celtic salt, whether it's magnesium, mushrooms, the mushroom capsules. But I just iron, liquid iron. I think I get it from my mother, though. My mother's 84.
And she looks great.
Thank you. She's 84, and she moves and gets out of the house sometimes quicker than me. Like, when it's, like, really cold outside, she was out a couple of weeks ago shopping for a dress for my party, and I'm like, it's 1 degrees outside. I don't care what store is open. I'm not going outside if I don't have to.
Wow.
My mother's like, girl, all you gotta do is just put on a lot of clothes. But my mother loves to go. She's 84, and I thank God that she's still very mobile. She still drives.
And wants to.
And go get her nails done.
Yeah.
And she's something else. But I think I get it from her. But the thing about people, and I'm coming to terms with at almost 57, is it's almost euphoric when you're able to accomplish these very meaningful projects and have these victories that almost felt or seemed impossible, or many people thought was impossible. Many people thought working on a redistricting lawsuit was like next to impossible.
And look at you.
Well, look at God. But with that, though, you can have moments where you crash, especially knowing that just the human nature of knowing that you have people who are opposing and or have ill energy. I hate the term haters, because I know it's people that really have self-hatred. Because anytime that you take issue with a person who simply, my son's out of school. So if I never did anything for education, my son's done. But I know the bigger picture is your daughter in school. That's important to me. I get so many calls about kids in school. I got a guy text me last night. I know it's Saturday night. I know you're probably busy, but I did my daughter application, my granddaughter application for CAS, and I see other people getting letters. My daughter didn't get a letter. I'm like, it's Saturday night, but here, email me here. Or teachers inboxing me, or staff inboxing me. I feel like I was treated unfairly, and this happened and that happened. Like, I got to open this inbox and like, okay, email me, because this went into a file that I don't even see because we're not connected on social media. But it's like it comes with big highs, but it also sometimes comes with big lows. And then I have to find ways to heal myself, to rejuvenate myself. I'm very strong in my faith. Thank God my mother raised me in church and raised me to have a relationship with God, not just a building. Right. Because that is what helps to regenerate me when I sing.
I was going to talk about that. Yes. So you like to sing?
Yeah. When I sing, it
just personal?
Heals me. I used to sing in the choir a whole lot. And
at the church?
I said, oh yeah.
Okay.
And when I was, I would say 5, I started singing with my mother in a quartet group. Back in the day, they used to have quartet groups that would go around on Sunday all day Sunday, from different churches to different churches with programs. But I grew up singing. I was in the glee club and the choir and Winter Halter Middle School and at Redford High School. So it's a part of who I am, but it's also very therapeutic for me.
Okay.
Because when I sing, when I praise and worship, I feel the presence of God. When you feel the presence of God, it like recharges you to not look at who don't like you. Don't look at who said negative things about you. Don't look to me, who is the author and finisher of your faith.
Amen.
And I know I'm not perfect, because I will lay somebody out with this tongue of mine in a minute.
You know, I can believe that. But you had the discipline and the strength to not.
Yeah. Well,
You know what I
sometimes
mean?
I don't know. Sometimes I fail. You know, they press the wrong button. Sometimes I fail, but I thank God that He is a redeemer, and that He does look beyond all of our faults, and He
Yeah.
see our needs. And at the end of the day, oftentimes anything that I'm fighting or arguing or debating somebody about really is about how you treated seniors, or how you treated children, or things that you've backdoored policies that are harmful to our community, and you expect me to be quiet. And I'm not going to be quiet. And so sometimes, I have to go against the grain, and then really literally fight for my people.
And you do it so well. And in case you don't hear it enough, and I'm sure you do, I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
For being passionate in our community and letting your voice be heard and speaking for all of us, especially as it relates to these children.
Thank you.
Because somebody has to have their back and
Yes.
fight for them and
Yes.
care. And then I want you to know that you are such like a role model too. With these kids, being a black woman and being proficient in two of the hardest subjects that our kids, and I'm saying this as a parent now, okay, of math and science.
I love it.
So just thank you for fighting it for us. Thank you for raising the bar and continuing to do all that you do, and just thank you for being here. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you
and sharing
inviting
your
me
time.
on. I appreciate you inviting me on. It's something that I believe we all have a divine purpose. For some, it takes them longer to find what their purpose is. But I'm grateful to God that He has helped me to live a life and place me on a trajectory where everything that I've experienced from my teens, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, on to now, fast forward to my 50s, and soon to be 57, is really prepared me and become a toolkit to do what I love. I speak a lot. I take a lot of events where I'm speaking on issues, whether it's African American history. I speak a lot at Wayne State. I'll be there doing Women's History Month. On Tuesday, on my birthday, I'll be speaking for Michigan State.
Okay.
In Lansing about redistricting. Women's efforts in April. Ask Me retirees. You name it. It's constant. To whom much is given, much is required.
That's the rule.
To whom much is given. So being an educator allows me to in a lot of ways study, message, and package information in a way that lay citizens every day can receive
and understand.
And I'm grateful that God has given me platform after platform. There hasn't been a month go by, I don't think, since I've left the legislature, that I haven't gotten a call to be on, whether it's 247 or CBS.
I see you everywhere.
I don't say that with pride, but I say that out of, if you build it, they will come. If you build the knowledge, if you become an expert in your field, and this is something I tell young people, nobody can beat you being you.
Amen.
Okay.
So any last words before we leave? We got about 60 seconds left.
Wow, that was quick.
I know. What do you want? We know we want to say go Lions.
Go Lions, go Lions, go Lions. I like to say I thank you for allowing me to be on again. But this work requires all of us. If you can't get out there and fight and speak up, you can certainly help those of us who are. I will be at 1440 Franklin on Monday at 5:30, celebrating 30 years of public service.
Okay.
And 57 years of life.
And what's the time?
At 5:30. 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. The tickets are $100, but it's for our Strong Women Lead Pack.
All right.
And anybody that's willing to support us, You know, we would love to have your support.
All right.
And please join us in this fight for equity and social justice.
All right. Well, we love to support a good cause. So
Thank you.
I will see you for your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank
You,
you.
Detroit, for tuning in to Beauty and the D, where we discuss power, wealth, and style, hosted by yours truly. Thank you again, Sherry Gayden Dago, for being here, community activist. And we're running out of time. I can't even name all her accolades. But thank you for tuning in. We love you, Wjzz Cool TV. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go Lions.
Go Lions. Looks like we may be going to the playoffs.
All right, how about
I mean,
we're at
excuse me,
to
the
the
Super Bowl.
I pray we do go to the Super Bowl. I got my shirt ready. Okay.
Yes. What about the just the momentum going on
It's
in the
exciting.
city? Yes,
It's